Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with a weekly garden tour. It's been an extremely hot and humid day. So far no rain, even though there's gigantic clouds everywhere. They're really just making the air completely still. But I'm back from Philadelphia and I wanted to give you a tour here because I am now getting into my seasonal transition where I'm starting to collect the seeds from all of the cool season things like poppies and larkspur, carrots, all those things that have been blooming all spring. And I am starting to really get busy putting in tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, all the summer things, vegetables and flowers. So let's take a stroll because this is probably the last time that the garden is really going to be in its full spring display. So right here in the feed tank bed, you can see that the parsley is starting to flower. And I'm of course letting that go to seed and the caterpillars love it, although I haven't seen as many swallowtails on this as I anticipated, which is a little bit strange, but it's how it goes. You can see the Asclepias is in bloom. No, I've only seen one monarch so far and I wasn't fast enough to get a picture of it. The bees are really enjoying the Asclepias tuberosa right now. I think that I love especially the orange and blue larkspur together, but that lavender doesn't look bad either. I have not been in the feed tank today, but I should have because man, I got overheated. It's definitely time for me to start yanking garlic out of the ground. But once I do that, then I kind of get into full deassembling mode. So I'm trying to do this in the right order and be logical. That's not always my strong suit. Lots of poppies here aren't quite ready in this bed. These bloomed a bit later. I've already harvested the barley out of there. I just need to clean that up and get it replanted. It's driving me completely bonkers. But the thing is, you guys, I ran out of soil cube and it's not coming until either Thursday or Friday. So I can't do a lot of potting because I don't have any soil. And I can't even tell you how debilitating that feels. I have not done my potatoes yet. I know I've been promising for 2 weeks, but these two, the first two that I did, desperately need to be undone. I'm anxious to see what's in them. And all the sweet potatoes that I potted up a few weeks ago are doing great. They're just waiting to get into the ground. I have been spraying these with the rabbit repellent. Behind that, the bags of soil cube that I'm growing tomatoes in, I know they're not necessarily pretty, but I'm actually planning on like building something to cover up the yellow, so this isn't like the finished, but it's, you know, just an idea for people who, you know, might live on a balcony and you don't have room for a lot of stuff. This is an easy way to grow tomatoes. I get that it's not aesthetic, but you know. Now, the favorite thing that's going on in the garden right now for me is this pretty parasols echinacea. And I know I featured this last time. I just cannot get over how beautiful it is, how clean the foliage is, how tall these stems are. The pollinators absolutely go bonkers. Like in the morning there were like 50 different bees on. It's just such a beautiful plant. I really love it with all this celery that's going to seed. And you know, this was just a row of celery that I planted, that I grew from seed last year in I think I sowed it in August, and I harvested quite a bit for celery. But what I really like about celery is the seed. That's what I like to cook with. So I'm gonna have a bumper crop this year. And oh, more poppies to harvest. I'm gonna do a separate video on how to harvest seed. That is what I have been getting started on the last 2 days since I've been home. And you see the harvesting seed process is interesting. Every year it's different. And you see most of the larkspur isn't ready yet. Like it's still flowering, and over here you see these seed pods are green. The seeds aren't mature, so it's not time to harvest these. So it's a succession that you actually go through I've been going through now the last 2 days harvesting poppy seeds, but leaving all the green ones. But I really want to show you over here because I've got my first ripe tomato and I'm gonna harvest it right now. It's so awesome. Look at that. This is one of the grafted varieties from my friend Brandon, and I feel like this is a really momentous occasion. First tomato of 2021. But you can see these plants are doing great. Grafted is always the best solution for me. I have so many diseases here. Good grief. I see a little sun gold. No, there's fruit, but they're not ripe yet. So you see lots of tomatoes coming. In this border, got a big old pokeweed there. But this border is doing great. Hi, Benjamin. I've got my neighbor dog friends out here to greet me. And I do need to get in here and weed. I see that crabgrass is doing its job. But you see the sunflowers there and zinnias, the gladiolus, the okra, there's the castor beans. Oh, lots of ripe poppies over here. I hadn't walked over here. So this is the stage that you want to harvest your poppies. You can probably, maybe you can hear that. But that'll be another video. You can see the carrots are still blooming really well. This is going to be one of the last borders that I'm going to be able to knock back. It's definitely starting to get to a stage where it's driving me crazy. As much as I was in love with it, now it's looking really messy. And, well, I don't need every single seed. Remind yourself of that, Bree. I don't need this many carrot seeds. Like, no rational person needs this many carrot seeds. I mean, look, from one flower head, that's probably more carrot seed than any normal person would need for any given year. And I have that times what, like 1,000? But this area has really been catching my eye. This is one of the, I think it's from a First Editions line. I need to look up the name of this rose, but it's really, I think it's just quite pretty and it smells really nice. And I probably have in a little too much shade, but still planning on doing some tree work here. Probably not until week after next. I still have 2 more trips ahead of me. And then I don't have any travel for the rest of summer. So I'm just trying to like not freak out and think that I'm running out of time, because I'm not running out of time. And you guys, the Prunus mume that are falling now, see, some of them are really nice and large. They're ripe and they actually do taste like apricots. These ones might not be the best. I'll find some better ones to show you. See, the hydrangeas have started to bloom. They aren't, this is a bad year for hydrangeas. You know, all that ugly foliage, that's because of the late frost that we had. And then they got really dry, and even though I watered them, you know, they have puckered leaves and the flowers are small. But such is life for a hydrangea. Over here, I have just started harvesting the poppies from this area, so you can kind of see where I've come through and I've made cuts on ones that were ripe. These aren't quite ripe. So what you're looking for in ripe is they need to have these little openings, but ideally the seed pod's actually going to be totally tan. So I've done a pretty good job just now of gathering in here. So by tomorrow, more of these will be ripe and I'll be able to harvest some more. These 100-gallon root pouches are doing wonderfully. I can't believe how big the corn has gotten. And the cucumbers and tomatoes that I planted in here are all doing really well. So I think that this is going to be some good harvest soon. Now here are some flowering apricots, or some of the Prunus mume fruit. And actually here's a really good one, and it's delicious. Yeah, it tastes just like an apricot. It's not quite as big, but it's quite tasty. So if you can get them when they're ripe, there's still quite a few hanging on in the tree. This is one that we've started to make some progress on, but we're gonna do some big cutbacks on this. Kind of rejuvenate it and open up this area so it's not so shady. I haven't been able to get pomegranates the last few years because the Prunus mume has created too much shade. This is actually a grove of pomegranates there. This one is starting to flower. Let's see, this is actually a variegated leaf form. It's more ornamental, but it does produce edible fruit. Over here, these are doing well. The raspberries are really tasty. The hydroponics haven't grown much. I think that's because I forgot to tell them to add nutrient solution while I was gone. So I have to add nutrient solution. Just waiting on these onions to ripen, so I will have some fresh seed. I just think they're so pretty. I might as well show you the mess that I left. I got overheated and went inside and took a cold shower and changed so I could look somewhat appropriate to make a video, and I just left the mess that I was in the midst of. I've been trying to clean up and get tomatoes staked in here. These are some of those foodscape pots that I did, you know, well over a month ago, and the tomatoes have grown a lot. So I finally got those secured to a cattle fence panel. Same thing over here. I've kind of reoriented this area, cut back the figs, and have this staged so when I do get more soil, I can put some more tomatoes in containers along here. This has always been a really good zone for me to be able to grow tomatoes in. And blueberries are just absolutely covered. This again is powder blue. You can just see the fruit set is really heavy. But again, these aren't typically ripe until sometime in July. So as we round Flock's Corner, good grief, I did not do the Chelsea chop, and I should have. These are really tall. I know when they flower, they're gonna all flop over. So before they start blooming, I really do need to come in and basically whack them at least halfway down. More poppies that are starting to ripen here. Really excited to see the lantana has come back and is flowering. Along the north side, it's dry. I haven't watered, and I think we got rain while I was gone, but you know, there's no such thing as too much rain at this time of year when it's 90 every day. But for the most part, everything is filled in well, and just need to probably turn on some sprinklers. Another Flock's Corner. These are both big batches of Phlox paniculata bright eyes, and I do regret putting it in this spot just because I'd rather be able to grow something that doesn't spread so much, but it is what it is. I've tried digging it out. I mean, it's really encroaching over here, and yeah, probably need to get in and get at least some of that out of there. This bed's driving me crazy, so when it cools down tonight, I'm probably gonna come in and clean this up because I just can't handle this anymore. This is beyond its time. And there's pretty things in here that you don't notice, like the eucomis and the hydrangeas, and so yeah, you know, a half an hour of fixing this up, it'll make a world of difference. And the front bed is bonkers now. So my goal is to have all the seed harvested out of here before I leave, and then Aiden, my neighbor, is gonna come and mow it down while I'm out of town. He's gonna mow it and mulch it, and then when I get back, I'll be able to get it planted for the summer. But so I still have quite a few centuria to harvest, and I have barley that's in here. I've harvested most of the poppies already. There's also some cilantro and a bit of larkspur. I probably will sacrifice this larkspur just for the sake of getting this cut down and prepped for replanting. I wanted to show you this beautiful crinum. I moved this from an area that had gotten too shady last year, and I'm just so happy to see that it's blooming. And you know, this bed isn't going to be too hard to tame. It's just a few things. But this container that I did last week looks so awesome. Look at how big the tomato is already. It's crazy how fast it grows in Soil Cube. My goodness. I was doing some cutbacks here. The mint was sort of out of control, and I got a pot to match the two that I already have out here, and so I'm going to move that pot and actually plant the stuff that's in it in the ground, at least the Carex and the Chamaecyparis. And then that other one still needs to be repotted. But again, I can't do this until I get more soil. In preparation for seed collection, I went and got more galvanized buckets. So I should be prepared now for all my little special approach to how I separate seed and clean the chaff off. I have a method which I'm going to share. This bed's filled in really great. You'd never know that this was like completely dug out and replanted, you know, back in early spring. It's just filled in perfectly. So I'm really happy about that. And look, I've got some almost ripe, these are San Marzano tomatoes here, so that's good. And again, these are growing great. This is still kind of the magic time when tomatoes look pretty in North Carolina. that eventually changes. So these allium, actually there are more in here mixed in. I'd transplanted a bunch. They didn't transplant well, but I'm glad to see these ones have done well. I definitely would like to add more bulbs to this border and maybe more structure. So I'm gonna draw this bed out. I'm gonna try and reevaluate this space for the long term, and that'll be good. I haven't done a lot of redrawing of my landscape in a while. I think it needs it. And this barley needs to get harvested. It is collapsing quickly. We actually were out here playing volleyball last night, which was kind of absurd to do in a garden. But it was fun. But yeah, this I'm anxious. These two beds, that front one and this wave, I'm now very anxious to get these cleaned up and replanted for the season. As pretty as they were, in decay, I think they just look a little too chaotic. And we still have to deal with this Prunus mume. In case you can't tell, I have more thoughts about doing stuff than ambition to actually accomplish it. But this is a pretty little area. This, of course, is the section that got sown like 3 weeks later than over there. So there's a big difference in its stature. This is going to be easier to harvest because this is starting to kind of fall down and collapse. So I do love that combo of the barley and the larkspur together. Bees love it too. And all this organic matter is just going to get mown down in place and help improve the soil. All we do when we harvest the barley is this. We literally just take off the tips. So it's actually a very easy, a very easy process for harvesting. So you just come along, and I put out a big tarp and get a bunch of people, and we just walk through and throw it onto the tarp, and then we can come with the mower and mow it all down. So I showed you that echinacea in the back, pretty parasols, and see, that's protected by having onions in front of it. And here, this echinacea isn't protected by anything, and the deer have been eating it, just eating the tips right off. And that's what they do. So it's my job as a gardener to come up with a creative solution. I need to plant something that deters deer in front of this. So that's my plan. I don't know what it will be yet, probably basil, because I just sowed like 10,000 seeds. of basil today. I know I sound like I'm really off schedule, but to be honest, this has been my schedule for about 7 years in this garden. And it actually works out great because, you know, we don't get frost until usually Thanksgiving. So that's a long season to grow these summer annuals. Now you see the buckwheat that I sowed when I was, you know, trying to fill up this border. That's really doing well. It's flowering. That'll go to seed. It'll self-sow, and it'll keep regenerationalizing. So once I have it sown, I usually don't really have to do anything else to it. It'll just kind of naturalize in the area over and over again. This shrub border, see, the nigella is not ripe, so there's no point in collecting them at this stage because the seed won't actually germinate. So these actually have to turn kind of a tan color. That's the sign that you know they're ready. So seed saving is something that you do kind of day by day, week by week, but it doesn't just all happen at once. And the same goes for over here, the money plant, the lunaria. This is also not ripe. So you see the seed pods are still green. You can see the seeds in them, but these have to turn like a translucent tan before they're actually ready to be harvested. None of these are at that stage yet. So it's not ready yet. So here's another very noteworthy echinacea. This was a trial plant, and I'm gonna need to look up the name, but I really wanted to show you, you see how these are fasciated? So it's the whole stem. See that? The whole stem is fasciated. It's when the stem goes flat. And then it makes these really funny flowers that are, you know, also flat. You see that stem there is, yeah, it's just a weird, I'm fascinated with fasciation, so I think that's cool. But I know most people would say, oh no, that's weird. This is not a disease though, okay? So that's good. But yeah, you can see the entire stalk is just totally flat. That's fasciation. Well, I'm gonna get back to it, harvesting more seed and cleaning up some of the messes that I've left all over the yard on this exceptionally hot June day. And I thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing another update next week as the garden continues to transition from spring to summer.